Hi friends, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Olivia. I'm a visual storyteller and I love sharing my life and my travels here on my channel. In this video, I wanted to share the comparisons of Mexico versus Costa Rica. A little backstory on me and my life and my journey. I'm originally from the US, from Chicago. I started this nomadic journey with my partner Chico back in 2021. We left our life in New York City, packed up our bags after spending a month in Guatemala, realizing that the life in the US and New York City was no longer for us. We were craving peace, stability in a different way, less of living in the rat race, paying crazy amount of rent, crazy amount of groceries. When we first visited Guatemala, the minute I got to Antigua, I just cried. I felt my soul, my body, my nervous system just at ease. I felt like I was finally at peace, and it was exactly what I needed in that time and exactly what I've been looking for what felt like my entire life, honestly. I never felt that way before until arriving in Antigua, being in a hammock in our little casita and listening to birds and just peace for the first time in a while, especially after being locked in a tiny little apartment in East Village, New York. It felt like exactly what I needed. And so a month later, when we returned back to the US and our lease was coming up, we had a choice to pay an absurd amount of rent just to live in New York City and just keep working hard, or we sell everything, pack up some things, start living nomadically. And honestly, for me, it was an easy choice. And I'm sure for Chico too. We decided, you know what, packed up 5 boxes of, just our things that we wanted to keep. And my mom came and picked up our cat Prim and took her and set off to Guatemala with just a backpack. So when we arrived in Guatemala, we stayed there for 6 months before making our way into Mexico. We've been in Mexico now for over 3 years on and off. We also spent some time in Costa Rica in 2023, and then we just returned this year. And in this video, I really wanted to share some comparisons between both, because I think for a lot of people considering leaving the US or Canada or even other parts of the world, they consider Mexico, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Thailand, Bali. In this video specifically, since I just returned from Costa Rica and now in Mexico, I really wanted to share kind of my thoughts and comparisons between both. I absolutely love both places. I love Costa Rica. It feels like a big field trip there. It feels like a retreat. It feels like you're totally immersing yourself in nature and with the wildlife. And Mexico has all the same things as Costa Rica in a way, but you have such a rich, vibrant, colorful culture here. Just wanted to kind of share my thoughts on both. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. I would love to hear from you if you live in either one or are considering one or the other. I do think both are beautiful places, but there are obviously their differences and there's also similarities. I'll go through both in this one. I hope you enjoyed the video. Now let's get started. Okay, quick little travel tip I wanted to share, especially if you're always hopping countries like I am. I use this app called Airlo, specifically their Discover Plus Global eSIM, which means you can download a data plan straight to your phone without needing a physical SIM card. No airport lines, no plastic packaging, no stress. It's 100% digital, which I love. You can just open the app, choose your country, and then boom, you're connected to a local network in minutes. Discover Plus works in 137 different countries, so you never have to worry about staying connected. It's been so helpful when pulling up directions, looking for rides, checking in with friends or family, or posting something on the go when the Wi-Fi is spotty. And if you work online or travel a lot, you can really feel the difference. And one thing I didn't notice, you can actually keep your original phone number active while having an Airlo eSIM data plan. It's super helpful for when you're juggling things at home or anything work related. Airlo was the first eSIM ever to be on the market, and there's over 20 million users now. So yeah, it's pretty solid. And it's honestly one of the small things that makes such a big difference when you're on the road. I'll leave the link in the description below if you want to give Airlo Discovery Plus eSIM a try. You'll get a little discount and it helps support my channel. Use my code OliviaA3 for $3 off your first Discover Plus eSIM. Definitely check it out if you're planning a trip and want to make your travel just a little bit easier. Thank you, Airlo, for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to it. So the first one is cultural expression. Costa Rica is so calm, pura vida lifestyle, chill. Mexico is the complete opposite. It's bold, it's vibrant, it's lively, it's loud. There's just a complete different type of energy in both places. Overall, I feel like Mexico has a lot more culturally to offer. There's so much diversity. Each region is completely different from one another while sharing some similarities and obviously similar influences. But throughout the country, you can go around and find so many different different types of art, culture, food. Costa Rica overall, I feel, is just a little more laid back there. You can find a little bit different culture when you go to the Caribbean coast, but overall it's kind of all the same. I feel like it's not as noisy as it is here in Mexico. Mexico, you're going to be woken up by so many loud noises and so many unfamiliar noises when you first get here. The gas people and, you know, the people selling drinks, riding by. It's loud and it's something to get used to for sure, where I feel like Costa Rica is definitely calmer, quieter. Another difference is the climate and landscape. Costa Rica has beautiful tropical beaches, and it has the Caribbean side and the Pacific side. It also has beautiful mountains to explore as well, where Mexico is completely diverse. Mexico is ginormous compared to Costa Rica. Costa Rica, I believe, is the size of West Virginia. Mexico obviously has so many different cities, so many different landscapes and agriculture, and you can find desert here, different types of beaches. You can have the Caribbean side, the Gulf of Mexico, the Pacific side. There's so many different mountain regions, and I think that that gives you more of an opportunity to see more if you live in the country. You just have more options to travel to different places and experience so many different things, whereas traveling throughout Costa Rica, it's all kind of similar, and a lot of the mountain areas have turned into like tourist destinations, where in Mexico you can find mountainous areas that still feel like little villages, while some have some of that tourist attraction, like even San Jose del Pacifico, for example. It still feels very local. We're a visitor there, not overrun by tourists, where, for example, obviously, like Monteverde was founded by Quakers, I believe. That area, or La Fortuna, is just a little bit more touristy overall and more expensive. If you really like jungle and some mountains, Costa Rica is really nice for that, but Mexico obviously has so much more city life to explore, so many different towns, so many different beaches, and all of that. And that also goes into the weather. I feel like Mexico has a variety of where Costa Rica, similar. You have the mountains and then you have the beaches, but Mexico, you can find towns that are much cooler. You can find warmer places, colder places, and in between. So I feel like they have a lot to offer in those ways. The next one is cost of living, and I think that everybody knows how expensive Costa Rica is. When we're there, I've never been to a place where so many people are complaining about the prices there. Not even for like imported things, but for local things, it's very expensive. I just heard it everywhere we went. It's just like a common topic when you get to Costa Rica, how expensive it is. It really is, honestly. I feel like on average, we spend maybe $5 to $8 more on a meal than we do here in Mexico. Rent is more expensive. I think building is more expensive. Food is more expensive. Groceries are more expensive. And I believe it's one of the most, if not the most expensive place in Central America. It is really kind of shocking because compared to Mexico, you can live definitely more affordably overall. You can find affordable rent. Food is pretty affordable. Groceries are affordable. Produce is affordable. Transportation, all of that is way more affordable than in Costa Rica. I would say it's like 30% more than Mexico. I'm not sure. Prices are comparable to the US. The cost of living overall is just higher. I feel like that goes into what kind of life you want to live. Do you want to keep up with the standards of the US, or do you want to, let go of a little and learn to live Mexican, I guess? And it's not to say that you can't find those modern amenities in Mexico. You just learn to live with a little bit less here in Mexico, and you realize you don't need as much as you thought you did when you lived in the US. And I think Costa Rica accommodates a lot of that US mindset or Western mindset, which obviously you pay the price for. So, and another thing, I think there's definitely more street food and mercados in Mexico compared to Costa Rica. Costa Rica has farmers markets and all of that, but everything is a little bit more expensive overall. In Mexico, you can, even in Costa Rica, you pay a good amount for just a classic plate with rice, beans, and a protein. A simple plate like that here would maybe be half the cost that it is in Mexico. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think about that? The next one is language and integration. In Costa Rica, I feel like it's very easy for Westerners to feel comfortable when they get to Costa Rica. It's very English friendly, and they also accept the US dollar, whereas in Mexico, you have to learn to pay with pesos, you have to learn Spanish, integrate yourself in the local culture and community. In Costa Rica, it's very easy for you to just act as if you're in the US, I guess. If that's what you like, there's no, shame in that. If you really want to learn to live in a new place and assimilate to a new culture, then Mexico might be for you. For me, I really love that Mexico challenges me in so many ways. I'm not as far along as I wish I was in my Spanish. It challenges me every single day. I'm learning new words, I'm learning new ways to communicate with people, and I'm practicing every single day, even if it's just basic ordering or basic, at the mercado or whatever. Overall, I think Mexico, you can learn to be in a new country, learn to be without some of those comforts that you have in your country. It's not that you can't, but I do feel like there's a big separation in Costa Rica. I feel like they're not very integrated, where in Mexico, you see everyone's kind of living together, living in unity. Not to say that it's perfect and there isn't that divide in some ways, because that definitely is happening and happens, but overall, people are living together. There's a community. The Mexican people really love when you try. They'll help you and they'll teach you. I feel like it's a different experience than I had in Costa Rica. Costa Rica, some people did think I spoke Spanish. For the most part, most people automatically speak to you in English there, which I don't really like, because I think you should at least try to get people to speak your language there. The next one is food culture. I think it's known that Mexico is just a world-renowned country for its cuisine. And Costa Rica, they have their simple plates with the gallo pintos or casados. The main food there are rice, beans, salad, and maybe like fish or protein or of some sort. In Mexico, there is so much diversity in the food. You can go from the Yucatan and have a different experience than in Oaxaca, and then go to central Mexico, and it's completely different from Oaxaca. They are known across the entire world for its food, and people dream of coming here for the food, where in Costa Rica, it's not as known or even delicious as Mexican food. I feel like that's a big difference. If you're a food lover, Mexico is the place for you. Costa Rica is good if you want just like simple life, and I do appreciate that, and I love the simple meals there, especially on the Caribbean side and having that Caribbean influence. But Mexico for me won my heart, specifically for the food and the love for food here, the community around food. My first experiences going to taquerias with my dad, I felt this kind of home feeling that I never felt anywhere or with anything before until I had Mexican food. And going to my friend's house and that welcoming energy, you're my family, is how they treated me. We eat at the table together, we share meals together, share drinks together. There's just a culture and a community around it. It's so strong that the whole entire world has got to feel it, even by not even visiting here. So the next one is the agriculture and food access. I kind of talked about it before when I talked about the affordability of it, but Costa Rica is very limited in its diversity, and it's very expensive, obviously, to get imported things. Something that I didn't know about Costa Rica, especially with how much they promote sustainability and eco-conscious living and health living and all that, is that they are a part of the United Fruit Company, and they do spray most of their produce. I'm not sure the exact amount or percentage of the country, but I do know it's a very substantial amount. And I learned about it in the Jaguar Rescue Center. They talked a lot about how the country sprays a lot of their produce. So you're living in kind of this chemical country, I guess. It's not to say there's not small farmers and people doing good things, but majority of the country. For Mexico, obviously it's a ginormous country. At the local mercados, you can find small batch farmers. There's a lot of people selling herbs and fruits and vegetables. It's not to say that Mexico doesn't spray their produce or doesn't have its issues. The next one is wellness and spirituality. I feel like Costa Rica is known for its yoga retreats and yoga classes and more of like a Western approach, where Mexico is definitely rooted in ancestral healing. You can find temazcals, cacao, mushrooms, all those types of things, and folk medicine. And it's not to say that you can't find like yoga retreats, obviously, and those types of things in Mexico, where those other healing practices are definitely more abundant. The next one is safety. And Costa Rica is known to be one of the more safe destinations in Latin America, and Mexico obviously has bad rep in the media. I wanted to touch on this because honestly, I've been to both and never have had a bad experience in either place. I feel completely comfortable walking alone in Mexico. I've never felt uncomfortable. I've always felt safe. There's a ton of women like me, older, younger, solo, who are around here, you know, doing their thing, living here on their own. Costa Rica as well. So I know it probably depends on the region, but I've traveled around Mexico a little bit and never have felt unsafe in either. But let me know your thoughts on that. Do you have any experience with the safety as a woman or as just you? So the next one is visa requirements. I don't know all the fine little details on this, but I thought I would mention it. In Mexico, you're allowed up to 180 days, and in Costa Rica, you're allowed 90 days. In Mexico, it allows you to be a little bit more slow paced and make your way throughout Mexico slowly and just experience living here. Whereas Costa Rica, yeah, within 3 months, you have to either leave the country and come back or get your residency. And I do hear that Costa Rica is a little more strict than Mexico. I know Mexico has been strict at certain points and it's ever changing with the state of the world, but Mexico right now allows 180 days versus Costa Rica allowing 90 days. And Mexico also offers a residency program that you can work up to being a permanent resident. In Costa Rica, I'll read it here that I wrote down, and don't quote me, research it for yourself because I'm not a pro at this. Costa Rica has a digital nomad visa. They also have a pension visa for retirees. They're all income based as well. It's all, you know, stuff you have to research into. So another thing is the Indigenous presence in both places. In Costa Rica, they have the Bribri community on the Caribbean side, and Mexico is home to, I can put it here, throughout the entire country. And in Mexico, there is, I believe, over 50 different languages spoken here. There's a big indigenous mix. And in Costa Rica, they still have that, but less than in Mexico. A little bonus is the creative expression in both. I believe that Costa Rica is a place to retreat, rest, reconnect with nature. Perfect place to have some time for your inner self and to get connected again with nature. You're just immersed in nature. You do so many outdoor excursions and activities. Mexico, to me, it gives that, but it has more of this artistic, bold expression. It helps so much with my creativity, with photography, with videography, with art, with music. Mexico is just so culturally diverse. And I feel like Costa Rica, yeah, it's a place where you can really connect with nature, be with nature. And I think there's a time and a place for that. Love visiting Costa Rica this time around where we got to leave Mexico, leave this kind of vibrancy and just go in nature and be in the jungle. I really loved that because, yeah, it felt like everything quieted down a little bit and I got to really just be there. And there wasn't much distraction around, much noise around. Where Mexico, obviously I mentioned, is much more noisy. Sometimes it's hard to just feel like you can be just by yourself. So I do feel like that's a big difference between the two. So now I want to get into some surprising similarities between both. Mexico and Costa Rica are very nature-based living within like the locals and just overall. And you have so much access to beauty all around you at all times. In both places, you're able to connect with nature. You're able to feel like the beauty of the world and be connected in those ways, to find jungle in both and mountain in both and just this love for nature. The next one is fresh food and tropical fruits in abundance in both. Obviously, I touched on that a little. I do feel like in Mexico, you have more diversity overall, but in both places, you can find delicious fruit, delicious fish, and fresh produce. And fruit in Costa Rica is just so delicious. I feel like it has such a different flavor, even though Mexico has the same fruits. In Costa Rica, they just have this tropicalness to them. It feels like you're more in the jungle there compared to like living on the Pacific side here, where it's a little more dry, desert-like sometimes. I feel like that makes a difference in the taste of the fruits. The next thing is warm hospitality and community care. I think in both places, they care about the community, they care about their ancestors, and it's just overall just warm and welcoming. I think they both share those things in common and that love for their ancestors, their elders. Wellness is kind of woven into their everyday life. And this not to say all of Costa Rica or all of Mexico, because I do feel like the cities kind of struggle with this. But when you get outside of the cities, you kind of see how their daily meals are woven into nature and they're eating with the earth. They're eating more connected, which is better for their health and their well-being, and less like soda and processed foods, activity, and all of that. I feel like they both share that common understanding for taking care of yourself, and not just with physical health or your food, but just overall well-being. I feel like both share that in common. In both places, you can find connection to cacao and to coffee and to the sacred rituals that are in both. Coffee grows in both Costa Rica and Mexico. They both harvest cacao. This love for cacao and chocolate and coffee. I really love tasting the different coffee throughout different areas. Costa Rica's coffee is delicious, and so is Mexico's. And Mexico has different regions of their coffee, and so does Costa Rica. Overall, Latin America, you'll find delicious coffee throughout. And I'd love to hear, do you like Costa Rican coffee more than Mexican? Let me know your thoughts. And the last one is that both to me feel relatively safe. I feel comfortable in both places. I feel like they're both very welcoming to foreigners. Both places have a pretty big expat or immigrant community. There are areas throughout Costa Rica and there's areas throughout Mexico where you can find people that are just like you, wanting to leave your life, even travelers or backpackers or even just tourists. You can find people just like you throughout, and there are communities living throughout both countries. There's so many different, Facebook groups that you can join to find people just like you. There's both people retiring to these countries. Something that I love about even where we chose to live here in Puerto Escondido is that it's really nice to be around people who can relate to. There's people from all different parts of the world, and I think it's just something so beautiful about these places is that they have accepted that people are just tired of their life, really want to slow down and appreciate these things that these countries have to offer. And I feel like the biggest thing is that you have to learn to assimilate and respect the people and where you are. You don't want to come here and just expect it to be what you're used to in your home country. It's not. It's a different country. It's a different way of life. It's a different culture. It says a lot that these places accept, these people coming in here, and it's more than we can say, I guess. So I love it, and I really love being surrounded by not only locals, but people that have left their life and are starting over, or just here for a period of time and just trying to figure life out, or just trying to see, another way of life than they're used to. So I think it's something so special about these places throughout the entire world. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video and listening to me ramble. I think both places are so incredibly beautiful, and it's not to say I will never live in Costa Rica or Mexico is the only place for me. I chose Mexico because to me, Mexico feels like home. I have a history with Mexican culture. I grew up around it. Chico is half Mexican, and it's a culture that welcomed me. I come from a place that's very much a Mexican community in Waukegan, Illinois, and the town has a lot of Mexican immigrants, and I grew up with a lot of Mexican immigrants or Mexican Americans, and I've always had this deep love and respect for them. Like I said, when I first went to my first taqueria, I don't know, it changed my whole life, honestly, and I felt like I never felt love or a grounded or rootedness in food before. I just always felt comfortable. I would meet my dad for lunch, and he would share with me things that he learned from his Mexican friends. We tried sopes together for the first time and flautas. Compared to American families, I think Mexican families really love and accept people. And it was the first time that I never felt I was a burden on my friend's family, where in American families, you can feel like, your parents don't want to buy stuff for you, or you don't want to eat at their house, or they don't have money for that. You just feel kind of weird going over to a lot of Americans' house. And when I went to my first Mexican friend's house, man, they just give you so much food and they just welcome you, sit down, eat, drink. It's your house too. That's just how it's been for me and my experience. For me, coming to Mexico felt like the biggest hug and the biggest welcome. And I love the culture here. I love the people so much. It's a place that accepted me, I guess, and people that accepted me when I felt like, even in my culture of being mixed race of white and Puerto Rican, I never felt fully accepted. But with Mexicans, I never had a question of who I was. I really appreciated that and learned that early on, how loving and how open and accepting the community is. It's not to say it's perfect, But overall, I think that there is just this familia aspect to Mexican culture. And I think that the history of it has made the decision for us to live here easy. Whereas Costa Rica, you know, I don't have as much of a history. It's a different lifestyle, but I've always loved it. And I've always loved that people were going there, moving there, building houses and homesteads and growing their own food. And I really love that culture there too. But there's definitely a deeper relationship with me and Mexican culture. So I do feel like that makes a difference. And if you have that with, you know, one or the other, or don't have any, you know, history with either, then it could make things different. I would love to hear your thoughts if you're thinking of Mexico versus Costa Rica. If you already have made the decision, are you living in one or the other? What are your thoughts? And if you left one or the other, why? I wanted to just kind of make this video as just an open conversation, hopefully hear your experience in one or the other or both. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. I hope it just gave you some insight and maybe helped you learn something. I hope you're all having a beautiful day, and make sure to like and subscribe, comment below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.